have hope. Was there ever a time when you didn't have hope?
Well, I got to admit, Michael, despite the ridiculous sentence that I received, that's one thing that I never lost. I lost everything else, all my possessions, all my personal belongings, early on, but hope was the one thing that I held on to. And I'm grateful because that's what got me through.
What is that ungodly long sentence so people can get some perspective of what that means?
213 years. And I want to emphasize that's years, not months, but years.
Do the math on that, bro. How many months is that?
Like 2,000 something.
Yeah,
I did the math once.
It's something ridiculous.
So the irony of this is that this is a couple that is deeply committed to fitness and health, and they're so vibrant, and you can see it just by looking at them. But even I am blown away by looking at you, Adam, and thinking, are you really 213 years old? How did you get out if you're doing 213 years? Whoa, prison professors, I'm super enthusiastic to introduce you to my friends, Adam Clausen and his wife, Ro Clausen. If you haven't known about Ro, she runs an amazing YouTube channel called Strong Prison Wives and Families, which I'm a huge sponsor, supporter of, because my wife, and those of you know our work, was a prison wife for 10 years of my sentence. Ro's been with her man, Adam, for a long time. We're going to hear that story today. It's an extraordinary story, not only of a long journey of working through prison as a husband and wife team and becoming successful, but also this story of redemption of a guy who was just serving an ungodly sentence, which he will talk about. This will be inspiring to you because he's no longer serving that sentence. He is home with his girl. So welcome to our program, Adam and Ro. Thanks so much for being with us at Prison Professors.
Thank you so much for having us on, Michael.
It's great to be here.
So Adam, welcome home, welcome home, welcome home. Why don't you tell our audience the bullet point right now, because our guys are inside Supermax prisons, high security prisons, Pelican Bay, ADX Florence, and a lot of them don't have hope. Was there ever a time when you didn't have hope?
Well, I got to admit, Michael, despite the ridiculous sentence that I received, that's one thing that I never lost. I lost everything else, all my possessions, all my personal belongings, early on, but hope was the one thing that I held on to. And I'm grateful because that's what got me through.
What is that ungodly long sentence so people can get some perspective of what that means?
213 years. And I want to emphasize that's years, not months, but years.
Do the math on that, bro. How many months is that?
Like 2,000 something. I did the math once.
It's something ridiculous.
So the irony of this is that this is a couple that is deeply committed to fitness and health, and they're so vibrant, and you can see it just by looking at them. But even I am blown away by looking at you, Adam, and thinking, are you really 213 years old? How did you get out if you're doing 213 years?
Fortunately, Michael, I did not have to do that whole term, right? I had a lot of help, a lot of support in getting there. As you know, Shon Hopwood, my attorney and dear friend, mutual friend of ours, Shon was able to put together a petition requesting what's called compassionate relief. And thankfully, that petition gained some support along the way. We had a lot of people that contributed to it. And ultimately, due to my extraordinary and compelling accomplishments, our personal story, the things that we were able to do together, I was granted relief after serving roughly 20 years, 5 months.
I don't know if all of our viewers know this, but Shon Hopwood is actually one of the co-founders of Prison Professors, along with my other partner, Justin Paperny. He's now a professor of law at Georgetown. He also has a story of incredible redemption, of going through a decade in prison for armed bank robbery, but now he's a professor of law and a policy advisor. And he's certainly so grateful to hear about the successful outcome he got for you, Adam. And I'm going to say from the beginning, a big part of your success is sitting right by your side. I know that Ro has been a relentless advocate for you and helped get your story out. I don't know whether it was Shon who first introduced me to your story or how I heard about it, but I'm just so incredibly impressed by the two of you and the commitment that you have made to helping more people in prison and their family members prepare for success. And you're just an incredible story of inspiration for our audience. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us. How long have you been home now?
1 month as of yesterday.
1 month.
And I should add, the first 14 days was a quarantine, which, to be honest, we had a whole plan that once they let me out the door, we were actually going to get in the car, travel cross country, use that as our honeymoon. And we were forced to put the brakes on that. In the order that the judge issued, he mandated that I remain quarantined for 14 days. And I got to tell you, that was the best thing that ever could have happened, because I got to spend 14 days with my beautiful wife, who's been waiting expectantly all these years. And instead of just hitting the road and taking off full steam, we got to really take time to acclimate to this new life, to us being together all the time. And it was a truly extraordinary experience.
Well, I want to say, and this is an important point that I'm going to give, and I want to say that Ro, I don't think she just waited. I think Ro was very active and serving as many of us know who served a long period of time, our wives are serving that sentence along with us. They're making that commitment. And it's really important that we look at Ro and the women in our lives as role models, because they're the ones that give us the strength. Certainly, I know that was my experience. I have no doubt it was your experience. And that is going to be a good source of encouragement for people inside. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the background? What brought you into the system with such an ungodly sentence? And if you've got enough time, walk us through where you started and what your thought process was when you faced that kind of time.
So I was about 24 years old at the time that I committed a string of robberies in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It was myself and a group of individuals who robbed what we believed were a chain of illegal establishments. Somehow, in my immature thinking at that time, that allowed me to justify or attempt to rationalize this string of robberies. Eventually and inevitably, those crimes caught up with me. I had some co-defendants who were eager to cooperate with the federal authorities. I quickly found myself in federal custody, being threatened with hundreds of years in prison, which, as you know, there's a lot of claims that are made when you're initially arrested, and I didn't give that much weight. I didn't think that was possible. You can't give someone hundreds of years for robberies where no one was killed, no one was seriously injured. So I didn't take those threats seriously. However, as you can see, the government made good on those claims. When I refused to cooperate, they took us to trial. I was convicted in 9 different robberies. And the way that it works is, for each of those robberies, I was sentenced to a mandatory minimum because there was a firearm used. The first crime, I received 5 years, mandatory minimum, but then each of the subsequent robberies where a firearm was used, it was an additional 25 years. So 25 plus 25, ultimately resulting in 205 years simply because a firearm was present. Now, the underlying crimes, the actual robberies themselves, I received 97 months or 8 years. So I got 8 years for the robberies and an additional 205 years for the guns. 213 years total.
all running consecutively. And Ro, were you involved in Adam's life at the time that this happened?
We weren't. We got back in touch about 9 years. 9 years after he first went into prison.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So that's kind of similar to my wife and me, where we'd gone to school together, but she had the good sense to stay away from me when I was making reckless decisions. So you two started this journey, and Adam, so you began this journey where? I imagine at Lewisburg or where? Allenwood?
I started out in Allenwood Penitentiary, yes.
Okay, and how long were you there?
I was there for 9 years. 9 years almost exactly. And honestly, at that time, I was still young enough. I was a bit naive. I didn't even realize the company that I was in and the way that, I went into that environment. I guess I should have been a little bit more concerned, about the things I was doing, the way that I was approaching people. But I guess everyone looked at me as this young guy with this crazy sentence and kind of gave me a little bit of space, a little bit of distance, which ultimately proved to be, really significant in how I did my time. And I was fortunate to have a few positive influences early on, although I got to admit, I didn't heed their advice initially. Things kind of had to run their course. I never lost hope, but I wasn't ready to really turn my life around. There was a level of despair involved where I continued to, do drugs. I was drinking. I was kind of running around. I was young and wild still and didn't know how to face down this amount of time. I didn't really have a plan on how I was going to break it down and approach eventually getting out. So thankfully, those positive influences kind of helped me channel that energy and move away from the negative behaviors towards fitness as building my foundation for everything else. Because in order to be healthy, you got to give up those other things. And those individuals not only helped me personally move in that direction, but they created the space and opportunity for me to eventually move into a role creating my own fitness classes and then facilitating those to the rest of the population. That changed my mindset. I found a purpose in what I was doing, and it also inspired me to not only continually improve myself, my own health and well-being, but now I was in a position to serve others, to help others. And that was very, very impactful in determining how I did the rest of my time.
So you're communicating with guys right now who really need a message from somebody who can be an ambassador for this message of hope and this message of self-perseverance and resilience. And, as you know, a lot of these people or a lot of people in prison struggle with this concept of, oh my God, I can't do it. They want to think of pulling the trigger or ending it. In fact, I just spoke with somebody this morning virtually that was, contemplating suicide. What did you experience with regard to people being around people in USPs and high security penitentiaries or people with very long sentences that are thinking about or rather than just lose hope? What message do you have for those kinds of people with that kind of mental struggle?
Well, it's all relative, whether it's 1 year or 100 years. To that person, whatever time you're doing is significant. Regardless of the time I was doing, guys used to come to me or they'd send other individuals who had similar type charges with the multiple firearm offenses. And when they'd hear my time, 213 years, they'd be like, wow, I've only got 30 years. And I see your mindset, your mentality. So, I got to figure out a way to deal with this as well. But I never, ever, minimized the significance of each individual's time. And my encouragement was always to try and find some sense of purpose, to make sure that set some tangible goals. Even when there doesn't seem like there's anything you can possibly do, find a point of focus. When you have something to focus on, always begin with the end in mind. figure out where you want to go, and then you can break it down into smaller pieces, bite-sized chunks that you can actually start gauging your progress towards that. And when you have a seemingly insurmountable mountain to climb, like 213 years, you better figure out how you're going to break that time down and use it to your benefit. One thing that I have always stressed is about the way we view any term of incarceration. It needs to be seen as an opportunity for self-growth, to really focus on introspective analysis, developing your self-awareness and self-efficacy, because the minute you walk out the door, whether you have 1 year or 20 years, life is going to hit you fast. And if you haven't invested the time in yourself and developing a solid plan for that transition, and then ultimately toward whatever it is you aspire to do with your life, you're not going to be able to succeed. You have to have that plan. That's where I think most of us fail. Because although I didn't mention this in the beginning, this wasn't my first offense. This wasn't my first time in prison. I went to prison from 18 to 21 for a string of robberies that I had committed in my youth. So I had experience with the system. And I had gotten a little bit of education, a GED, taken some college courses, received vocational training, and I even had a job lined up for my release. But I hadn't really mapped out a plan and found a purpose, a purpose for my life and real, genuine motivation towards achieving those goals. So when I got out, as soon as things got difficult, I said, man, F it. Everything's out the window. I'm off and running. I know the easy way. And the easy way is what led me right back to prison.
Ro, you were, as I've said before, you were going through this as well. Tell us how, and I think this is important, of how important it is for a man's mindset, which Adam just articulated so well. How did that really strengthen your resolve in being able to climb this mountain with him?
Yeah, so there were some times where it did seem like we'd never get to the top of that mountain. And as a woman on the outside, there are a ton of emotional extreme highs and extreme lows. And although I never gave up hope, there were points where it kind of felt hopeless. And what we had to do was learn how to build a foundation of total transparency and open and honest communication. And that's what really pulled us through. And what Adam was saying earlier about setting goals and trying to attain goals and using this time to your advantage was something that I had to learn how to do on the outside as well. Because the fact that Adam was taken away from me for what at that point was the rest of our lives, I personally never wanted to lay down and be a victim. I never wanted to let the system win and pull him away from me for the rest of our lives. So what I decided to do instead was build this organization where I felt like I was using this sentence and this time constructively. So I built Strong Prison Wives and Families, a support group for loved ones of the incarcerated, because there wasn't anything out there at that time that seemed positive and helped to defy that stigma that exists against those of us who are on the outside. And I encourage you on the inside to encourage your other half to try to do that, to try to live their lives, because there's this thing that I've discovered while we're doing time on the outside, specifically for significant others of those that are incarcerated, is we put ourselves in our own little prisons too. A lot of times we think, well, he's in there suffering, he's miserable. Why should I be out here having fun? Why should I be out here celebrating, enjoying life while he's sitting in this cold cell? I literally had a woman say to me one time, he's in there rotting, so I deserve to be rotting out here too. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. And I had to put it into this visualization for her. I said, do you have MRSA? Is your skin literally rotting off your body? Is his? No, he's not in there rotting. You need to do something with this time. So when he comes home, you guys are so far beyond where you started. so you can be successful and you don't get trapped in that revolving door that the system seems set up to do. So that's my encouragement is, number one, encourage your loved one to live their life. It might be kind of tempting to want to control something, and the easiest person or thing to control is your loved one on the outside. Try to avoid doing that. Try to encourage her to live her life and do positive things. And then the other thing is, we're emotional creatures out here. And I know a lot of times, or what I've learned through working through my own relationship, but with 100,000 women who are dealing with somebody who's incarcerated, is you have to try to acknowledge her highs and her lows, because a lot of times I've learned that the person on the inside has to shut off their emotions in order to get through the time on the inside. We're still very emotional. So there were so many times where I felt hopeless and desperate, and I'd lash out either with some sort of emotional outburst or anger or anything along those lines. And Adam was so good at calming me down and trying to communicate to the root of that. And then once we got to the root of that emotion, working to and through whatever the outcome was.
And you heard from Ro, but I can confirm that she's got more than 100,000 people that she communicates with on a regular basis. And it's not a game. It's not a hobby. It is something that she's extremely passionate about. And that comes through in all of her work, which Adam is now becoming a big part of. Adam, maybe you could give us a little bit of insight in how you were successful in transitioning from a United States penitentiary, which is in the federal system, high security. In state system, California, it would be a level 4, equivalent to a level 4. How successful were you in moving, or how did you succeed in getting from a high security penitentiary to a medium security FCI with a 213-year sentence?
Well, I would say this, Michael. What I learned to do, I've studied other successful inmates, guys who had done time, and I really studied stories like yours and paid attention to what individuals had done while they were incarcerated and try to incorporate those practices into my own routine. I was fortunate within the penitentiary to be able to carve out some space. I was seen as that guy that did the fitness classes. Everybody kind of knew what my purpose was, what I stood for. And as I said, I had a little bit of space that allowed me, for the most part, to avoid some of the other, pitfalls, some of the other things that guys get pulled into. It's very, very challenging with the prison politics. The higher the level of custody, as you know, the greater the politics. I felt very fortunate when, after 9 years in the penitentiary, I was submitted for classification to a medium custody.
Did you architect that transfer, or was that just a reflection of your behavior during those 9 years?
It was a reflection of my behavior. It was at a point where the federal system was changing their custody classification levels. So
what year was that? 96?
No, this was 2009.
I had to do a real architecture to get out of USP to a medium.
Really?
And I was to go to McKean. You want me to tell you the story of how I did it?
Yes.
So, and this is a good tutelage for anybody who's in jail or prison. So I had a long sentence, but I was never high security. I was in a high security USP because I had 45 years. And when I went in, anybody with more than 30 years to serve had to be in a USP. The change was, it switched to 25, I think. They dropped it. No, was it? When I went in, it was 25 years. If you had 25 or more to serve, you had to be in a USP. I think the change in 96 or so switched it to 30 years. But in any event, I only had to serve 26 years. So after a year, I was eligible to go to an FCI. I didn't want to go because I was really well acclimated. I'd never been in prison before, and I didn't fully understand how much easier it would be at an FCI because I was acclimated. I had my routine. I was in college, and it was really important for me to get a university degree, and I didn't know if that was going to be available at the next spot. So I was cool there for about 5 or 6 years, and then I saw really close to me a guy get killed. And I said, maybe it's time to go. And, but I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to just go somewhere because I didn't know what it would be like. And so I architected this very elaborate plan. And the first step I did is I told one of my mentors. I think it's very important if you're in prison to get a mentor, to find people that can help move the needle for you. Adam has Ro, okay, which is not only a significant other, but I have no doubt in many ways an advocate and a mentor and a calming presence for him. I didn't have Carol in my life at that time, but I had I cultivated relationships with a lot of people from academia. And there were people that taught criminal justice and prison programs in universities across the country. One of them was, well, several of them were also authors, and they wrote textbooks about prison. And one of them, they used to come to visit me in the penitentiary. And one of them, his name was Bruce. He came to visit me, he was from Chicago, and he came to visit me in Atlanta. And we had a conversation. I told him, I said, look, it's pretty rough here right now. I think it's time for me to go. And he said, just ask for a transfer. I said, yeah, it doesn't work that way. If I ask for a transfer, I might go to Lewisburg. I might go to someplace I don't know what's coming. Let's lay out a plan. And he said, well, what do you want to do? He said, why don't you just ask the staff, what's the best prison? I said, it doesn't work like that either. I said, let me put it in perspective for you, Bruce. I said, if you were to call here and say, is it possible to get a master's degree in prison? The answer would be no. But I'm in grad school right now getting a master's degree. I said, I need to get information from serious students. And the only way I'm going to do that is to have you go into prisons and do like a little reconnaissance work for me. And he said, how can we do that? And I said, here's what I suggest. Why don't we write an article together in a peer-reviewed criminal justice journal? And let's talk about the importance of education. You, as a professor from the University of Chicago, and me as a guy who's doing 45 years, and you're my mentor. And we'll publish it. And then I want you to send it to the BOP and see if you can get a meeting with the head of education in the BOP. And then talk about how you want to do this with other people in prison. And this leads us to our coexistence at McKean. So Bruce, we do this. We publish an article. And it was called, The Prisoner and His Mentor, something like that. But it was in a journal. And I got this doctor, PhD, co-authoring it with me in prison. And then he sends the journal article to the BOP, and he meets with, I forgot her name, but she was director of education for Sylvia McCollum. And he meets with Sylvia McCollum, and he tells her the story. And she's so impressed by this, that this mentor from the society is mentoring this guy in prison. And he says, well, I'd like to do it with more. And she says, I'm going to give you carte blanche to go to any prison in the United States, federal prison. And you will be able to meet with the most dedicated students in that prison. And so he starts touring. He goes to Oxford. He goes to about 4 or 5, but I'd heard about McKean. At that time, it was called the Dream McKean. And so I told him, I said, I heard about this place, McKean. See if you can get over there. So he goes over there, and they welcome him. He meets with the director of education, and he meets with 4 guys. One of them serving a life sentence, Jimmy Hamilton. Jimmy's home right now as well. So he goes and he meets with these guys, and he tells them about how's it work here. And they tell him, oh, this is the most amazing place. You won't believe it. We've got our typewriters in our room. We've got a family day. And I'm saying, holy shit, it's in prison because I'm in a penitentiary. And so I then architect. Now I know where I want to go, but I'm from Seattle. So it's really hard to get to the Northeast region. And I'm in the only reason I'm in Atlanta is because when I got locked up, there were very few penitentiaries. I remember when they opened Allenwood, they took a bunch of group of guys from Atlanta. So I'm in there and I'm saying, how am I going to get to Pennsylvania? So I call another mentor of mine who happens to be an advisor to the Bureau of Prisons. And that phone call, make the request. 1 week later, I'm in McKean. And I'm in McKean, and I'm meeting with the warden there, I go to the warden there because I'd read about him. Did you hear about Dennis Luther?
Luther, the famous Luther.
No, he's
Absolutely.
famous, all right. So I go to meet him, and the first day I go and say, "Hey, I'm Michael Santos. I'm doing this much time. I'm getting grad school. I was really inspired by you, and I read about you. And Bruce McPherson, my mentor, came here. Oh, yeah. He says, the first thing he says to me, what can we do to help you? What can we do to help you? And I had my own word processor in my cube. It was quite a different thing until there was a riot there.
Yeah.
And that changed it. And that was the whole story of how I got to McKean. But I tell that story because I want you, if you're in prison, I want you to recognize you may be living without hope right now, but that's not the path that Adam had. That's not the path that I had. We find ways to bring people into our lives, and we try. We have to also give those people the tools, right? Adam, you heard him talk about how he gave resources to Ro. If Adam was not of this positive mindset, always focused, always I'm going to do, it's unlikely that Ro would have had the stamina to do this, but he proved himself worthy, and she reciprocated by building an amazing organization that inspires 100,000 people. That is why they are role models for anybody, not only people in prison, but also people out here. And I know that you two are going to have amazing success with your continuing career. I've seen the Strong Prison Wives and Families channel grow. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your plans are now that you're not a separated team, but a unified team? What are you guys going to do together?
You want to tell?
Uh-oh, it looks like breaking news on the Professor's channel. Tell us.
We have a multitude of different projects that we are currently working on, things that we've been talking about for years, planning for years. And in this month, since I've been out, first and foremost, it's because of the investments that we made in our relationship over the years. Not only while I was inside learning, focusing on myself, she was doing the same work on herself and her life. And we were able to have conversations and in clear communication amongst each other about what our needs were, how we were able to fulfill those, even though there was the distance between us, the physical separation. And I got to be honest, Michael, I think for me personally, I needed some physical separation in order to fully develop or create the depth in our relationship that, a lot of times individuals out in society who get caught up in relationships, they never really invest that time and energy into really getting to know one another and to learning and growing together. We were able to do that. And that's why our transition since I've been out, honestly, has been really seamless. She's been here to support me every step of the way.
How's your driving, by the way?
Well, there is one thing that we can work on, right?
He hasn't driven yet, but he has a lot to say about my driving.
Okay.
But I think it has to do more with, like you were saying, the depth perception thing. So he'll be like, whoa.
Adam,
not me.
I can tell you the strangest thing for me was like the turns, right? I couldn't see it, and I'd tell Carol, I'd say, how do you know what's ahead of that turn? Slow the fuck down.
See? It's not me.
Michael, you're not helping me here.
He's like, we're not in Jersey anymore. Slow down.
All I can say, it's hard, but you're going to learn. And if you haven't been behind the wheel yet, when you get behind the wheel, give yourself some time and some patience.
I'm in no hurry.
I'm in a hurry, so I could be his backseat driver.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's been a tremendous experience. Our transition over the last month has been great.
I have no doubt that it's
time,
been great, and the next 10 years are going to be phenomenal for you. But do you guys have, like, I know that you're very active now in developing the YouTube channel.
correct.
What do you guys visualize? Like, how can people help you? Let me ask you that way, because I know that a lot of people in prison, and they have family members, and certainly I will be letting them know as I do that they should be supporting the Strong Prison Wives and Family YouTube channel and Facebook page and Instagram page, because you're just a great resource for the people, the silent partners who are serving time in difficult ways, and you're just such a great source of inspiration. But how can these people help you and support you?
Well, first and foremost, we've been documenting our journey, our transition, doing that through the YouTube channel, which is...
We actually changed the name recently when Adam came home to Ro and Adam Clausen. But if you search Strong Prison Wives and Families, that channel will pop up. So
I'm going to I'll put some links to that, of course, in the notes. So,
cool.
So now it's called, I want to make a note of that.
Actually, it's Ro and Adam Clausen, but the nonprofit organization is still Strong Prison Wives and Families. We just changed the name of it to incorporate Adam because people were trying to search his name. And so this way it was easier for that to come up.
Okay, so that's great. And has that influenced, that changed? Some of you will be seeing in the fall an episode that I did with Ro where she was teaching me more about YouTube so that I could teach you about YouTube. And she's just an amazing teacher that is just really dedicated to her craft. So is this the channel that we're always going to use, or will you be developing additional channels as well?
This is the channel that we'll use as the foundation to build out everything else. We were going to build a second channel, but then I had a conversation with somebody who has more experience than I do with YouTube, and she thought that wasn't the best idea.
So start a new channel. She said, just develop this one?
Develop this one until you grow big enough that you have a second niche or something else that you want to promote or go towards. She said to keep it on this channel.
I think it's really good advice because you're really building a brand, and it's a brand that's, I have no doubt, it's going to grow into millions of people. And there are ways to monetize it. We were talking earlier today about one of the tools that I use, and I'll throw it on here right now. When I got out of prison, my wife gave me this tool, and I thought it was broken because it doesn't have a dial tone. But for those of you like Adam and I who were in prison before these things, they don't need a dial tone. And in fact, this one that you guys got today has a feature that allows you to have 2 separate phone numbers on your iPhone. So I'm a big Apple guy. I'm a fan of Apple. I know that you're new to the Apple family, Rose, so welcome. But I'll tell you, it's super cool because if I run business, I don't always want my business going out and everybody has my cell phone, particularly if I'm running ads and media, because I might get hundreds of calls and you can't even answer them all. That's just the reality. You can't answer them all. So I have 2 phone numbers, my personal cell phone number here, and if it rings on my personal cell phone, I see a little P for personal.
Okay.
If it rings on my business number, it'll say B for business. Now, I can record a voice message for business that is different from my voice message for personal. So if it's business, I may not even answer it because I'm really a digital person anyway, so they can figure out how to connect with me through email or through my websites or something.
Sure.
But that's something that I would recommend you consider doing because you have massive reach. And I know you're going to be creating products because I keep encouraging you to create products. And when you run this media, if they're going to have a phone number attached to it, get one that's on your cell so you don't have to be this person that's carrying around 2 or 3 cell phones. You just have one with 2 numbers on it.
That's awesome, Michael. And I do a lot of life coaching for Strong Prison Wives and Families. And I could always figure out a way to do something, but it might be this roundabout way that's not the most direct and easiest. So I would use apps and then this and then that. So that is super helpful because, again, I don't want to give out my personal number to everybody. So thank you so much for that.
So just go to if you're a Verizon carrier, AT&T, wherever you go to the store and say, I'd like to get the second number. And there's the only phone as of today, and we're filming this in September of oh my God, it's 9/11. 9/11 of 2000 and what year is this? 20. Maybe change in the future, but just check your store. This is the only phone currently that has it. I think it's called the 11 Max Pro or something.
That's exactly what we have. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's our next step in making sure that we are able to pursue those business opportunities as well. As we said, we're very purpose driven on utilizing our story, our experiences to encourage other individuals, both incarcerated and all of their loved ones, how to become healthy and whole throughout this journey. And we've put together some products to do that. Some of those will be rolled out as courses through Strong Prison Wives and Families.
Excellent idea.
But there is also a suite of courses that myself and some of my colleagues, while we were at McKean, were able to develop in a Core 4 curriculum that we are currently in discussions about how to reintroduce that into the Federal Bureau of Prisons and make sure that it's accessible nationwide, not only within the Federal Bureau of Prisons, but also throughout some state systems. And now that we're here in Nevada, that's probably going to be one of the first systems to introduce that. And on the other side, what brought us together was a shared passion for all things health and fitness related. We've been talking about developing our own brand under the umbrella of Fit Beautiful Life, which is an opportunity for us to promote the nutrition, the fitness, the positive sleep hygiene, and all of the healthy daily habits that have allowed us, even throughout this past month in the crazy, hectic, busy schedule, that we know so many other driven couples, experience that lack of time and opportunity to focus on their health and well-being. We are not only modeling that, but we're providing the tools to help other couples achieve that same sense of balance in their relationship.
Well, I'm so proud of you and so happy for your family and so grateful, Ro, for your teaching and inspiration through all these years. And Adam, I just want as one long-term prisoner to another who's come back to society, just want to welcome you back to the community and wish you amazing success. I hope that you will be a regular guest on the Prison Professors program, because I know that many people really need to hear your inspiring message. And I look forward to sharing it and promoting the amazing work that your team is doing.
We love being
so
here
much.
with you.
So I'm going to leave you the last word. Give some hope to some of those fellas who are really looking forward to someday building their way to building a strong advocacy group and succeeding on a push toward compassionate release. Give them some hope, buddy.
Wow. Growth comes at the point of resistance. That's one of my favorite quotes. You never know what you're capable of until you're truly tested. Whatever challenges you're facing, nothing is insurmountable. As I said at the beginning, it's just about figuring out how you're going to break it down into manageable chunks and continue to plot your progress forward. As long as you're moving forward, you're getting closer to your goal, whatever that goal may be. And you have to you've got to believe. I mean, no matter what, you don't lose hope. You focus on those things, those strengths, those positive supports that you have in your life. Most importantly, your loved ones. One of the things that I've learned in my life is that with the right people behind me, anything is possible. We achieved the seemingly impossible. Everyone told us that we were crazy, that, this would never work. I had this outrageous sentence that could never be overcome. And people told her the same thing. Yet here we are. Here we are. We are living the dream. Every day is like a vacation. It seems like it's, endless sunshine, warm air. Like, this is it. This is what freedom feels like. And we always believed that it was possible.
Gold is tested in the fire of adversity, and you're here pure gold today from Ro and Adam Clausen of the Ro and Adam Clausen YouTube channel. Thank you so much for contributing to Prison Professors. We are so grateful to you, so happy for you, and want to wish you continuing success, happiness, good health, fitness, and we will continue telling your story to everybody who needs hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
And if you haven't subscribed to Prison Professors yet and you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to Prison Professors and please go visit Ro and Adam Clausen on YouTube and subscribe to them as well. Ro, one question. Is it okay if I take some of your inspiring videos and weave them into ours so that people in jail and prison who don't have access to YouTube can see your amazing life?
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Well, I want to ask permission. Thank you so much. Back again soon with Prison Professors.